A bright spotlight has swept across women's basketball, and it's shining on someone most people never expected to take over this quickly. One moment, the league and its fan base were praising A'ja Wilson as the undisputed face of the WNBA, an MVP with championship rings and a highlight reel a mile long. The next, a newcomer in an Indiana Fever jersey took the stage and left everyone wondering if the old guard was about to be overshadowed for good. The name that's changing everything is Caitlin Clark. And if the sold-out arenas and skyrocketing merchandise sales are any indication, her arrival has already sent shockwaves through the league. The story begins with a rising star who captured the hearts of fans long before stepping onto a WNBA court. Caitlin Clark's college performances were a spectacle. High-scoring nights, unbelievable range, and a commanding presence that made people sit up and take notice. The moment she announced her intentions to enter the professional ranks, fans started clamoring for tickets, jerseys, and any snippet of information they could get. Suddenly, a team once overlooked by everyone but the most diehard supporters found itself front and center. Preseason games for the Indiana Fever began to sell out, sometimes in mere minutes. Resale prices soared to hundreds, even thousands of dollars, for the privilege of watching a single exhibition match. Viewers who once ignored the WNBA began tuning in just to see what the fuss was about. Meanwhile, the defending champions in Las Vegas were facing a puzzling reality. A'ja Wilson, widely considered one of the premier talents in basketball, was struggling to draw crowds for her team's games, even when ticket prices were lower than a budget dinner. Where fans in Indiana rushed to crash websites the moment sales opened, Vegas struggled to fill seats, leaving entire sections empty and ticket offices desperate for last-minute marketing stunts. Rumors swirled about the Aces front office offering special deals, promotional packages, and begging local businesses to snap up blocks of tickets. All the while, the Fever's box office was swamped with calls from new fans hoping for a chance to see Clark in action. Across social media, a fierce debate erupted. Was this new wave of Caitlin Clark mania just a temporary spike of excitement, or was it a sign that the WNBA hierarchy had officially been flipped upside down? A'ja Wilson and her supporters brushed off the criticism by pointing to her unmatched accolades. She's the reigning MVP, a champion, and someone who's carried her team to the top of the league more than once. Analysts argue that a dynasty doesn't crumble overnight, and that the Aces simply had the misfortune of playing in a crowded entertainment market like Las Vegas. But as more and more seats remained unsold, fans couldn't help but wonder if brand-new star power was overshadowing the tried-and-true champions. It didn't help that the Indiana Fever's marketing team had all the momentum on their side. Their social media posts feature behind-the-scenes clips of Caitlin Clark, glimpses of her shooting in practice, and personal tidbits about her life off the court. Even casual observers found themselves intrigued. Some claimed that Clark's style of play, a blend of long-range marksmanship and confident ball handling, mirrored the kind of excitement found in NBA superstars. Others gravitated toward her no-nonsense attitude and willingness to shoulder the pressure of an entire fanbase. Everywhere she went, it seemed like crowds followed, leaving established talents grappling for a share of the spotlight. As the hype machine rolled on, new controversies took shape. A handful of seasoned veterans privately grumbled that Clark hadn't proven anything yet at the professional level. Speculation arose about locker room resentment, fueled by whispered accounts of top-tier players rolling their eyes at the mention of Clark's name. Online forums lit up with arguments between fans of the new phenomenon and supporters of the Aces, fueling an unspoken rivalry between Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. Some WNBA faithful worried that the conversation was turning toxic, overshadowing the bigger picture of growing women's basketball worldwide. Yet the surge of Clark's popularity couldn't be denied. Even in preseason, the difference was glaring. On one hand, an Indiana Fever game in Iowa sold out so quickly that hundreds of would-be attendees were locked out of the online ticket portal within minutes. On the other hand, a Vegas preseason match offered $19 seats and still found itself struggling to fill the arena. Ticket scalpers, who often capitalize on high-demand events, admitted they rarely bothered with Aces games, citing low interest and slow resale movement. The same resellers made a killing off Fever tickets, flipping them for hundreds above face value. For those involved in the business side of sports, the message was clear. Demand for Clark had hit a fever pitch, and it wasn't cooling down anytime soon. The news grew even more intense as the season approached. Reports of record-breaking WNBA merchandise sales kept flooding the sports world, and the biggest beneficiary was, without question, Caitlin Clark. Her jerseys flew off the shelves faster than the league could restock. Special edition shirts, hoodies, and even lesser-known branded items connected to her name became must-have collectibles. Though A'ja Wilson remained a respected veteran presence in the league's top 5 in jersey sales, her once untouchable status at the pinnacle of popularity seemed to be slipping behind Clark's tidal wave of hype. To the frustration of Aces fans, it appeared that championship banners and MVP titles just weren't enough to dominate the conversation anymore. In the midst of this media frenzy, the Aces organization found itself in a delicate position. Publicly, they insisted they welcomed new stars rising to prominence, claiming that the league's growth benefited everyone. But behind closed doors, insiders whispered about marketing strategies that had backfired, outreach efforts that weren't resonating, and a worried sense that the team's star power was no longer guaranteed. Some speculated that if Caitlin Clark had been drafted to Las Vegas, every seat in the arena would have been sold out in record time. Instead, the reality was far different, leaving questions about whether the Aces had placed too much reliance on their own hype. Of course, not everyone was ready to hand the WNBA crown to Clark without seeing how she'd adapt to the pro level. Critics pointed out that college ball, no matter how extraordinary, is still a step below facing veterans like Wilson. There were rumors that established players had circled the Fever on their schedules, determined to show Clark that the path to true stardom wouldn't be free of challenges. Some big-name talents hinted that they'd relish the opportunity to remind the rookie phenomenon that the professional ranks demand a different kind of grit and consistency. It seemed inevitable that tension would flare up once the season tipped off, prompting fans to wonder, would Clark rise to the occasion yet again? Or was she destined for a rough welcome to the WNBA? Meanwhile, speculation about the personal dynamic between Wilson and Clark grew louder by the day. Tabloid-style sports outlets latched onto every quote from Wilson that mentioned the word respect, twisting them into a storyline that she felt disrespected by Clark's meteoric rise. To add fuel to the fire, fans of each player engaged in a heated back-and-forth on social media, exchanging pointed remarks about empty seats versus sold-out crowds. Some threatened to boycott the league if it continued pandering to fresh faces while ignoring established champions. Others declared that the WNBA could finally see mainstream success if it embraced new superstars who drew the kind of attention that had eluded the league for years. All the while, Indiana Fever supporters were reveling in a dream scenario. A team that had struggled for relevance found itself perched at the center of the basketball universe. Players' signings multiplied, as certain free agents suddenly showed an eagerness to hop onto the Fever roster, citing excitement about playing with Caitlin Clark. Some veterans admitted they saw a chance to reinvent themselves on a roster teeming with new fans and fresh energy. Rumors of a potential super team began circulating, suggesting that if the right pieces aligned, Indiana could become the must-watch franchise in the WNBA. In response, analysts tried to predict the long-term ramifications of this sudden shift in fan interest. Would the Aces, and by extension A'ja Wilson, bounce back once the actual game started and the scoreboard did the talking? Or would Clark continue to break attendance records, overshadowing even the most decorated veterans? The mere possibility of a changing hierarchy set the stage for one of the most highly anticipated seasons in recent memory, sparking conversations about how the league might evolve to keep pace with its newly ignited fanbase. Even corporate sponsors started making moves. Reports emerged that major athletic brands were lining up behind the scenes, eager to lock in endorsement deals with Clark, deals that could eclipse what some established WNBA players had garnered. Insiders cited privately that the phrase transcendent figure had come up more than once in these meetings, suggesting the executives viewed Clark not just as another star player but as a once-in-a-generation magnet for new audiences. Meanwhile, the Aces' leading names found themselves fielding fewer calls from big sponsors, fueling further speculation that the league's marketing focus was drifting eastward toward Indiana. But was this solely about raw talent, or was there something else driving people toward Caitlin Clark? Some fans claimed it was her high-octane style of play, pulling up from distances few would dare attempt, dishing out assists with flair, and attacking the basket fearlessly. Others pointed to her charisma, describing her confidence as both intense and endearing. Online communities sprang up, exchanging stories about Clark's off-court persona, laid back, deeply passionate, and fiercely competitive. Sports journalists noted a pattern in her interviews, where she never shied away from high expectations but also shared credit with her teammates. It was an approach that made her appear humble while still showing star power that set the internet ablaze with every performance. Behind all the back-and-forth banter, a simpler truth emerged. Caitlin Clark had turned the WNBA into must-see entertainment. Every time she stepped onto the court, cameras flashed, social media exploded, and rumors buzzed about who might stand the best chance of keeping her in check. The league that once struggled for mainstream attention now found itself at the center of water-cooler conversations, with people asking if Clark could genuinely reshape the future of women's basketball. In the process, she'd become a catalyst for reevaluating how veterans like A'ja Wilson maintained their star power in the face of new competition. Soon, the day arrived when the Aces finally met the Fever for a nationally televised showdown. Tickets had been sold out for weeks, with scalpers rumored to be getting $1,000 offers for courtside seats. The build-up felt more intense than any WNBA opener in recent memory. The chatter wasn't just about the final score. Everyone wanted to see the dynamic between Wilson and Clark. Would they share a cordial handshake? Offer each other a respectful nod? Or would the tension manifest on the court in a flurry of blocked shots and drives to the basket? When the moment finally came, the arena was so packed that ushers were forced to turn people away for violating fire safety codes. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, cameras flashing every time Clark touched the ball. A'ja Wilson jogged out with her usual confidence, determined to prove a point. Even neutral observers sensed that this wasn't just another game. It was a defining chapter in the story of how the WNBA would adapt to its new reality. What transpired on that court went on to dominate sports headlines for days. Without spoiling the details of who emerged victorious, it's safe to say that the hype delivered, and then some. Every skillful pass, every contested rebound, every long-range shot resonated as a statement about where each player fit in the shifting hierarchy. Fans screamed themselves hoarse, social media was flooded with hot takes, and highlight reels racked up millions of views overnight. Win or lose, Caitlin Clark had proven she belonged, and A'ja Wilson reminded everyone why she'd become the most decorated player in the league. But beyond the final buzzer, the ramifications stretched much further. From that night on, the Clark vs. Wilson storyline was officially locked in as the central theme of the season. Commentators likened it to legendary rivalries from men's basketball, claiming it could finally anchor the WNBA in mainstream conversation. Sponsors lined up for both stars, launching new campaigns and limited edition gear. The Fever front office caught the wave, reaping the rewards of an unprecedented demand for tickets. The Aces, too, saw a bump in coverage as casual viewers tuned in to watch them defend their throne against the unstoppable hype swirling around Clark. In the weeks that followed, fans continued to debate the bigger question: who truly held the future of the WNBA in their hands? Some insisted that once Clark faced the grind of a full season, A'ja's experience and leadership would tip the scales back in the Aces' favor. Others swore that Clark's momentum was more than a flash in the pan. Her presence represented a fundamental shift in how people consumed women's basketball. Regardless of which argument rang true, the league found itself in an exhilarating state of flux, with every upcoming matchup carrying a sense of heightened importance. As the season wore on, more unexpected twists emerged. Last-second buzzer beaters, heated post-game interviews, and behind-the-scenes rumors that some teams were quietly restructuring their rosters to keep pace with the Fever's surging popularity. Each day brought another headline that traced back to the blossoming stardom of Caitlin Clark, whether it was about a sponsor unveiling a new shoe line or an announcement of yet another sellout crowd in an unlikely market. Meanwhile, diehard supporters of A'ja Wilson remained steadfast, reminding the world that championships aren't won by Twitter polls or jersey sales. They believe that, given enough time, Wilson's consistent excellence would outshine the novelty of a rising rookie sensation. Ultimately, the greatest twist of all might be the realization that both players, in their own ways, are redefining the league. Clark's mania might have lit the fuse for a broader cultural moment, but Wilson's sustained success offers a bedrock of legitimacy. In the end, fans have a choice. They can cling to old rivalries, or they can celebrate how these talents, new and old, elevated the WNBA to unprecedented heights of visibility and excitement. That brings us to the final point. If there's one thing everyone can agree on, it's that the WNBA will never be the same again. Ticket sales are up, merchandise is flying off shelves, and TV ratings are surging. For a league that's battled for respect and attention, this new era feels like the moment women's basketball has been waiting for. Sure, there's tension and jealousy behind the scenes. Yes, some players and fan bases feel overlooked. But the spark Caitlin Clark ignited, and the pushback from stars like A'ja Wilson, has catapulted the league into countless homes, hearts, and headlines. And that's a story far more compelling than any single rivalry, box score, or viral highlight.